Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Dynamics Corner, the podcast where we dive deep into all things Microsoft Dynamics. Whether you're a seasoned expert or just starting your journey into the world of Dynamics 365, this is your place to gain insights, learn new tricks, and hear from industry experts. In today's episode, a topic that plays a crucial role in cultivating not just individual growth, but also fostering a thriving and inclusive organizational culture. I'm your host, Kris.
And this is Brad. This episode was recorded on July 6th, 2023. Kris. You always throw me with these intros, I just want to let you know. I never know. What is it? Life is like a box of chocolates or something. You never know.
Yeah.
What's that from?
You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, that's what I'm starting to cover right now. It's like every time it's like, what's Kris GPT going to pull out for me? But in this episode, we had a great conversation about something that a lot of partners, organizations, and companies are wondering and questioning within the industry. And that is, how do we get resources to come work with Business Central? How do we get resources in the field? And today, we had the opportunity to speak with Sam Bush and Khaled Nassra. And hopefully it all goes well. And now the best part about this whole thing is they just started cutting the lawn outside.
Oh, nice.
Oh, we can't hear it.
We can't hear it.
No, I know you can't hear it, but I can, even through the headphones. So
it is distracting.
Okay. Mm-hmm. It's a little distracting, but I'll do my best. And I'll do my best to not cry like a little baby.
Okay, so. Well, if you do, just cover your face. Just kidding.
I will. But that's why I put the sounds there, so I can hide in shame. But good morning, Sam and Khaled. How are you doing?
Pretty good today.
Good. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us. We've been looking forward to having a conversation with you about mentorship and the resources within the community. But before we jump into having the conversation about that, and I've heard both of you speak about this quite a bit, so I'm looking forward to get a little more information about it. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, Sam?
Yeah. I am Sam Bush. I am a marketing program manager at Flowcast. Been in kind of B2B marketing my whole career, but been in the Microsoft channel going on 7 years. Outside of work, I got a 2-year-old Brittany Spaniel dog that takes over my whole life. And then I am a huge book nerd. I like to read a ton, and big beer snob, big coffee snob, as most people comment on my little spaceship back here and my giant cup of coffee. So those are the things you need to know about me. Coffee, beer, work.
Coffee, beer, books,
and
Business
work.
Central.
Work is last.
Well, not business, marketing.
Work is last.
Marketing. What book are you reading now?
Okay, so I just started Throne of Glass, the series by Sarah J. Maas. So far, kind of into it. I have a little bit of a book hangover from a fantasy book called The Fourth Wing, which really just took me into their world. So I'm struggling to get into a new fantasy right now.
That's good. It's good. I started reading last year after we went, I think it was Summit, right, Kris?
Yeah.
We went to Summit. Mm-hmm. We went to Harry Potter.
Oh, yeah.
And then I read the Harry Potter books, and my reading journey started slightly before that with the Witcher series, but that was what turned me into reading. So I read regularly now, and I find it's nice. I'm reading, I think now, the history about everything.
Oh, cool.
And I just finished up Outliers, Talking to Strangers.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought 3 books that are coming in. Outliers was great.
It's a real good one.
Which got me, after reading, was it Malcolm Glasgow's book? Mm-hmm. It got me into Talking to Strangers.
Yep.
And then I just had 3 books delivered as well, too. So maybe we can talk about the books. And I am into coffee as well, too.
The Witcher, because you mentioned that, and the new season came out. So,
which one? The Witcher?
The Witcher. Mm-hmm.
Oh, we can talk about that as part of this too, because there's a lot of conversation about that. I've watched 4 of the episodes on the first part at the time of this recording. Second part's coming out at the end of July.
Yeah.
and I want to know what you think about it. But Khaled, if you could you tell me? And I mispronounce everybody's name, so
It's a Northeastern
No,
thing.
you're pretty solid. It's scallop like salad is my go-to line. But
Okay.
a lot of the stuff you guys talked about are definitely of interest. I love The Witcher. I have not started season 3. I don't know how I feel about all the changes from the books. I mean, it's different media, and there are gonna be changes, so I don't mind. But yeah.
Did you read any of the books?
Yes, yeah.
I read 5 of the 7.
Okay. I'm
I'm
book
not
3
far.
and then had to kind of give up.
Yeah, I think I'm on Blood of Elves. Is that the third one? I've read the short stories and then the first one chronologically, and then now in the third one, or the like Sword of something. But I kind of stopped. The short stories were really engaging. The longer books were a little less so. I thought, but I absolutely loved the short stories. I also played the Witcher 3, like the game, which was pretty solid. But all my entertainment time has been spent on the new Zelda since it released.
I don't know how anybody does this in this community. I can watch one show or read a book at a time. Right now I can do Witcher in between. And everybody I talk with, they're like, oh, I play these games. And I'm like, you do all this other stuff. When do you have time? Because I sleep a few times a day. But the books, I agree with you. The books were very difficult.
Yes.
And I think it's because they were translated from Polish.
Mm-hmm.
And if you read them, I don't know which they did in the books, you can tell they were translated by different people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because the way they translated it is noticeable.
Yes.
And the book series is completely different than the Netflix series.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there's a lot of similarities. I mean, and the names are even different. I mean, you have Dandelion and Jaskier.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's like it's completely changing some of the characters.
Exactly. It's hard to follow.
It was hard to follow, but that's why I still haven't got to the last 2 books.
But speaking of Malcolm Gladwell, I'm also Canadian. I'm based in Vancouver. We have a growing community for biz apps. I also run our user group here. Been in business applications in general and for 7 years. I was in SAP before. Moved over to Microsoft and have been in this community for the past 5. I really am not a marketer. I had a marketing team, but I'm much more of an economist than anything else, and that's my educational background. I kind of stumbled into marketing by way of project management, and so I leave it all up to my team to be the creative folks, and I just am the bumbling connector.
Yeah.
No, that's great. See, now I have a new group of people to speak with about coffee, books, and what Khaled mentioned, he's not into marketing, but he's into other biz app type stuff. So we'll include you into that. And you said finance as well too, right? Did I hear that? Yeah, that's my other passion too. I mean, but who doesn't have the passion for money?
Honestly.
So.
Although I started my CFA journey and then very quickly gave up on being a CFA, so maybe I'm not that interested in.
You can just play one on TV. It's okay.
Yeah.
We'll allow that.
Yeah,
So
we'll take you on our show, Flowcast. We have a TV show called PBC. You could probably join that if you
very
want.
cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
Perfect. Meet
TV
Meredith.
show.
Yeah, with Meredith from The Office is in it. We about 2 years ago, Flowcast decided we were going to complete a TV series. It's on YouTube. There's 2 seasons, and it's like the same style of humor as The Office, and then people from The Office are in it. So it's pretty cool.
Wow.
It's a good one. Yeah, look it up. PBC. It's prepared by client or provided by client. I always get it mixed up because I am not an accountant, but I market.
No, this is PBC.
Uh-huh.
I see it. That's pretty cool.
Well, we should all get on that and have a guest appearance on the
I know.
episode.
I'm trying to get
right?
them
Do we have to travel?
me on it.
Where do they film it?
In LA, where our office is based. They actually
So we'd
film
have
it
to go to
next
LA.
door.
We'd have to go to
Yeah.
LA.
Oh,
I could do
I'll
that.
fly down there. I got family down there.
Fun fact.
We could go.
Fun fact. I've never been to California.
Ooh.
Of all the places I've been, California is not one. So to come to be on a
Did you
television
do that on
show,
purpose? Did you just purely avoid California on purpose?
I don't know. It just never worked out that way.
I think
that
you
I-
missed
that
you
I've
missed
gone there.
directions in San Diego. There was a few times you had directions in San Diego there. Yeah.
Well, next year too.
Next
If
year.
Next year I will attend. I
There
will
you go.
attend because I've heard great things about San Diego. But now, hopefully, before I go to directions, I'll be a TV star
Hopefully.
and I'll be on PBC.
Yeah.
And
Would be a guest starring PBC.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and all of us can be on and we can talk about things.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll be too famous for directions by then.
Is anyone ever too famous for directions?
I don't know. I felt pretty famous this year.
That's so cool.
Oh, well, maybe I will be.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll move it to here so I don't have to travel the directions because
maybe.
of that. That would be great. But so if you could talk to me a little bit about mentorship within the Business Central community. The Business Central community is amazing. I think we have a great group of resources. It's almost like a tight-knit family. And a lot of people seem to know everybody, or you run into people everywhere. I've been doing this for a period of time, and I've run into the same resources over and over again at different phases of implementations or at different gatherings. And one of the challenges I know that many are having, both from the partner community as well as from the end user community, is getting resources to staff projects, getting resources to maintain existing implementations at various levels. And it's when I say resources, I'm not focusing just on development. I'm not focusing on project management or functional consultant. There's the application is taking off, to put it, loosely. There's a lot more users of the application, therefore the demand. And I personally have sat here and said, how can we get more resources to come into the community? Which type of people would be interested? I know Microsoft they had some college programs before. They tried to entice college students to get into it. I do think the change to AL using Visual Studio Code to make it a more contemporary development environment, aside from the business application, can do a lot to foster new resources. But with Khaled and Sam, what do you have and what do you see as far as mentorship and how we can successfully bring resources into the community?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the points you mentioned, like developers or early career professionals are not necessarily excited about business applications by default. You don't really know that this is a space most of the time. I mean, I talk to people all the time through my Futures in Dynamics initiative, which is a mentorship group, but we find out that so many people have no clue what the space is, why it is so exciting. And I think there is some onus on us as a community to create that appealing nature to it, show how awesome of a community it is, but also being more open to taking chances. And I think that's the core piece about mentorship, is like opening our mind to what someone could become and then nurturing them, empowering them, growing them. And it can be programmatic and come from Microsoft and all of that, and that's fantastic. But I don't think you can beat grassroots movements where the community itself is empowering people. So you see this at Directions, like at Directions EMEA this year, we're giving a huge discount to anyone under 30. And I know that's like a bit of a cutoff for someone who might be 31 or 32. It's not great for them, but it's still intended to get companies to push some of their early career professionals into the forefront, give them opportunities to engage, learn from others, because I think just being a part of the conversation helps a lot, and then kind of sets you on the right path, even if there isn't something programmatic that is pushing you in that direction, very strictly speaking.
You hit on a few key points there. We can talk about the future and dynamics. We can talk about having an open mind to looking at somebody's potential. And that's something that I stress when I work with resources for positions or people looking for resources. The product is changing so rapidly, the development language changing so rapidly, the architecture is changing so rapidly. It's no longer what somebody knows. It is the potential of what they can know. What do they understand from the foundation, and where can they go? And that's a big message that has to be out there, because even having business knowledge outside of Business Central or that space can be helpful to someone who knows nothing about the application, because at least they can transfer that knowledge and translate it to. The other piece, as you said, under 30 gets a discount. Kris knows what I'm going to ask. What about us old timers? We should get a senior discount.
Yes,
We'll
discount,
definitely
please.
start that next.
We're tackling one challenge at a time.
Yeah. Started out with women in dynamics. Now we have futures in dynamics. Maybe we'll have oldies in dynamics next.
I like that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sign us up.
Sign me up. I will help you start that.
Too
I think a
funny.
lot of the oldies are ready to.
I can kind of tell you a little bit about my journey through Microsoft and talk a little bit about that like open mind mindset that you guys were just kind of talking about. So I started my career in marketing agencies, these fun, wild projects, but never seeing start to finish. So I decided to go brand side for an ISV that quickly became like my favorite job I've ever had for a while. And then we got acquired and it wasn't the same. But my boss at the time was this guy named Bill Knapp. He is used to be very well connected in the Microsoft community. Now he's retired and living it up. But he basically sat me and my counterpart on the sales team and partner sales team side down and was like, you're going to Directions. This is your first conference with PaceJet. You better be the last one at the party every night. I don't want to see you guys hanging out with each other. And he's like, if you see me shake hands with somebody, you get up here and you introduce yourself. He's like, this community can change your life if you put yourself into it. And I just took that wholeheartedly, and it has completely changed my career. Like, I could be still in a closet doing my random marketing projects in a silo, or I could be this person that I am now, which is like an advocate for biz apps, a marketer with kind of crazy experiences, and a mentor to other people. And it was all because it was like, here's how to do it, Sam. Here's how to get into this channel and make it part of your life. And I'm like, that's what... Go ahead.
How did you find a mentee? Because, like, you know, when I first started in the dynamic space, I came from SAP as well. In 2007, when I got introduced to Dynamics, that was really hard to find someone that was willing to like share. Finding information was so difficult, and then I ended up putting together a user group in the Pacific Northwest. And so collectively is small, you know, clients and customers who are using Dynamics, they felt like there was also a need. So we all founded this Pacific Northwest. And that's how really got me to where I am today, because of the community, because of the mentors I've had throughout the years. But back then it was very difficult. Now I feel like there's a lot more opportunities to do that. But now that you're in the space for quite some time, how are you finding those mentees?
Yeah, honestly, they're coming kind of organically. But I think part of it is like the spirit that I bring into like a trade show, for example. Like I was talking to Khaled and was like, my favorite thing ever is to grab somebody from either my team or another like partner of sorts who looks like they're just like bored at their booth, kind of shy, like go introduce myself to them and be like, is there anybody here you want to meet? Is there anybody here like you need some time with? Do you need any, like, you want me to go with you? You need anything? And I've taken that kind of approach in like a softer mentor style, even if it's just for those couple of days at a trade show. I think it's people like that who can help make it kind of easier. And then honestly, I mentor a girl who used to work for me who, she's smarter than me. I hired her because I was like, one day you're going to be my boss. And now she doesn't work for me. And she's like, I still need your advice and like some ideas and stuff. So that one kind of came naturally. And then another one that I mentor is, I was at Directions speaking on a panel with Khaled, And somebody was like, you know, if you can't hire the rock star, but you already have somebody who's like good on the team that you want to elevate and help them learn, like, what are some things you can do to help that new hire? And I was like, well, get them a mentor. And I was like, you as their boss can also find someone for them. You just need to know that they're looking. And he was like, well, will you mentor her? And I was like, sure, why not? You know, so it kind of happened again organically because I've opened myself up to kind of the possibility of it. But that's just how it's worked for me naturally. But I don't think it's going to be like that for everyone.
No, I think mentorship, I mean, I think we can, my comment, I think will cross, the conversation a little bit. But I think mentorship is important regardless of application or business or industry. I think people do need mentors. When I first started working in the business world, I had individuals that I worked for that had mentors. They'd have meetings, individuals would come in because this was back before the internet. They'd have mentors come in to meet with them to talk about business. And I always said, well, why do you need a mentor? And as I progressed through my career, I understood it's almost the equivalent to someone having, a therapist to help them with, mental health conversations. You can have good conversations about business, get a good perspective, or kind of keep you grounded because sometimes you can't see the forest through the forest through the trees through the forest, however that goes. So the mentor can help guide you. Now, which we were talking about mentorship and bringing resources into the community and doing a lot for this space. You had mentioned working or going to a trade show and speaking with someone to introduce them. These trade shows are not Business Central trade shows, I'm assuming then. These trade shows are outside of the realm of business applications?
Sometimes, so like Directions or Community Summit, but sometimes others as well.
Because I was, my curiosity is how do we get individuals excited about learning about the application? Because to be honest, if I'm sitting down, you don't see a lot of publications on Business Central unless you're in that space. Like I see a lot of Business Central content, but I see a lot of Business Central content because that's my universe. But now let's take somebody who may be at university that's looking for a career. How do we, what are your thoughts on how we can mentor some of these resources to step into the world, to do development, to do implementations and the like?
Yeah, I think it's so critical that we do that, and it's probably the hardest piece. I've capitalized so much on co-op programs and internships, and every intern I hire ends up being a full-time employee, which is fantastic. But you can only have so much, and I think if we go out to like career fairs at universities, things like that, I think there is a need for Microsoft to do a bit more of that, to be honest. But also each partner organization can support that and push for more of that, whether it is putting out education or tying it into other things. Because, Business Central is not just Business Central anymore. Business Central is itself with the Power Platform, with the ISV applications around it, with the SI community. And if we position all of that, like let's lure people in with Copilot and talk to them about how automation is changing the finance world. Do they want to learn about ERP and what it means? Because really, like even for me, when I started at SAP, I had no idea what ERPs were. I didn't know about like business applications. I didn't know about how interesting of a dynamic there is with the like co-opetition. Like sometimes you're working with Microsoft, sometimes you're competing with Microsoft, at least back then. But I think this is a very unique environment, a powerful world, and a lot of people kind of don't see it because it is in the shadows. So whether it is putting out more content that is appealing to early career professionals or people who are like just coming out of school, having grassroots organizations, like I mentioned, I'm not trying to plug my org so much, but Futures in Dynamics is exactly intended for that, is to like go out to careers. There's Matt Batterby, if you guys know him. He goes out to colleges all the time. And he was just doing this on his own because he's passionate about the community and wants to promote it. And he would go to career fairs and talk to them about his career and how it progressed towards business applications. So I think rewarding this, like we have MVP awards and things like that, but they tend to be more for the technical side. But if you have like community advocates that are recognized for their effort, I think that will help encourage more people. Same thing with like user group leaders, like Kris, you were mentioning building the community in the PNW. We didn't really have a big focus on this. Even in Vancouver, like the Microsoft office right now is very focused on games because that's our biggest industry here. It's also focused on surface and hardware, but Dynamics is slowly becoming a more and more important part. And so I think we can collectively build this motion, but there has to be some recognition for it to encourage people to have that stamina. Otherwise, like you're just going to get people who are super passionate about it.
Yeah, you mentioned some like internship. I did that too as a director of IT in my past life, where I look for interns, to get them into the space. And so, how do you choose a mentee? What qualities do you look for before you put your time and effort in mentoring somebody?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I never look at their past. Honestly, it's always for me like their material. Like you can shape anyone into like any metal can turn into a great sword if it's great metal. And
Touche,
ultimately
that's
your skill as a
That was
blacksmith.
that was good.
That's a
That was
good one. I'm
taken
gonna start
straight
using
from the medieval.
Sure.
I like that.
Thank you. I'm pretty sure it is a saying in Arabic. Sometimes, this is like the bilingual brain. Sometimes I translate something and people are like, oh, what a cool saying. And I'm like, oh, I guess that's in the other
You're like,
language.
yes, all the time.
But yeah, so I look for like their substance, who they are as a person, if they're willing to learn. We use something called predictive index, which is actually pretty handy. It tells you about how like teachable someone is, and what their like preferred management style is like. And so I know my own weaknesses as a leader and my own strengths. I thrive, and my team thrives if they don't want someone who's micromanaging them, just guiding them and coaching them. So I try to look for people who are compatible with me. And I think that's the biggest piece about like how to choose your mentees as well. I am passionate about like people who are immigrants or people who are starting their life without a lot of like support from their family or anything like that. And so I do try to mentor more in that area. Like that's my area of passion. But it also helps me because I can relate to them. I can understand what challenges they might be facing. And so I'm providing a more empathetic experience that is like easier for them, easier for me. They don't have to explain every single challenge. I was telling Sam about this, but like a couple of people on my team also have unique names, and I've noticed that they don't like often correct folks when they mispronounce their names. And so I talked to them about it and I was like, hey, like you should do this. This is going to be important for you to feel more connected to people, and just tell them how to pronounce your name just like 2 times. And if they're getting it, that's great. But like picking up on these like intricacies, I think sometimes can be hard if you're not relating to the mentee that you have. So it can be helpful to like find like-minded people.
And I love that, by the way, the metal and the sword analogy. Now, the flip side of that, mentor. So, we may have some listeners that maybe not in the space, but they're looking into space. Like, how do you find, what's a good quality mentor when you're looking for one?
For me, I like both sides of the coin. I'm always like, if I'm looking to acquire a new mentor, since mine is now retired. But for me, it's definitely around like, do they have a career path that parallels who I want to be, or one that's adjacent to what I want? So in this example, he was the CEO and I was the head of marketing. So I'm like, we don't overlap, but my pain points and my strengths are things that will help the business overall that he cared about, right? But the flip of that, when I'm looking for someone to mentor, is the same too. Like, do they want a similar path to where I'm headed, or one adjacent to something I've done that I can actually prepare and be better than just a sounding board, but instead like give them constructive criticism, give them new perspectives, give them unbiased opinions, more than just like, tell me about your day kind of relationship.
Yeah, and I think there is value to like knowing the multi-dimensional being that you're working with. And so like my first time trying to recruit a mentor for myself, I found a guy who played basketball, like totally unrelated to business, and he ended up being my boss at SAP. But I I found a guy who's also interested in basketball, and I was like, hey, like I saw you played for the school I was at the time, and you're now in business applications. I would love to talk to you. I'm also a huge basketball fan, and it was like crazy because that's the only time I selected myself for a job, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna come and work for you. And because we had that connection, it kind of worked. So I think it helps a bit to choose a mentor who either has a similar career path as the one that you want to build, or some similarity in interests, or anything that you can relate to build a deeper connection, rather than just like, hey, coach me on this one on this one business thing, because then you just have a business coach.
Yep. Yep.
So
And I think
it does.
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
You could.
It does. I understand where you mentioned the grassroots movement, and I'm listening to what you're saying about awareness. Yeah, awareness does so much for everything. So in this case, we're talking about the business applications and the life of this application and community, because it's not something like Office that you pick up, you install and you use it, and a couple of videos and you find there's a lot more to it. It's hard, and if we're doing it individually, the assumption is then maybe an employer would be looking for an intern for their organization. And you mentioned Microsoft could do more, or your thought is that Microsoft may be able to do more to promote the application in the university as well, by offering services, incentives to organizations, as well as the resources to use the application or to get into the space. But still, I think from the partner network, from what you're saying, it's almost individual whereas we may need to have more community-driven mentorship, meaning if I work for an organization that may not need an internship, but there's many universities nearby, I could go speak with the career center, can speak with them, but also say, go talk with Khaled or Sam, because they may have an opportunity for an internship. Yeah, it's almost like passing the resources to the appropriate organizations or mentors, versus it being individualistic where I need a particular position filled. And that's where I kind of grasp, how do we get that together? You're right. There's two ends. There's the Microsoft end, there's the community end, and that community end is driven between two. It's driven between the partners and customers. How do we unify those? That's sort of my question, because I would like to see a lot more resources in the community, just because we need it. And to be also honest, some fresh insights, right? Similar to having a mentor and a mentee. And I'm not saying anyone's, there's any problems or there's any staleness in it, but some fresh insights can bring more to the application, can bring more to the community. So that's my struggle as I was thinking about the conversation we were having and some of the stuff that I spoke with you about before. That's my question. Like, how can we do that?
Yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, I think one area is tailoring Business Central to industries could help, because then you're contextualizing it in real use cases. So you're not necessarily getting just like undergrads that are just fresh out of school, but you're also getting people from outside of the community that maybe are interested in moving into it. But also, if we are thinking about how to collectively work as partners, as users, I think this is where the UGs would be really helpful, because then you can share the experience. Maybe we're together recruiting more people into it. And also thinking about, we talked a bit about Malcolm Gladwell, but we'll also talk about Michael Lewis now, who's pretty similar. I think there's an element of Moneyball, where there are a lot of people who are overlooked.
Fast boys.
Right? Like there's
I read his books too. I read his books.
I love him so much. And like, of course, it's like the movie is also fantastic. But if you think about it, like a lot of technical colleges give very hands-on education. And you know who's been sponsoring all of these courses and ensuring that there's a course on their solutions? Like Zero and Avalara does it sometimes. And all these like different applications are doing a lot to inject the product organically and like almost like integrated marketing into the curriculum. But we can do a little more, I think. And that's a piece that is similar to Salesforce. Like if you ask a number of like people in universities still if they know about Salesforce, I would bet like 60% would know what Salesforce is or have heard of it in the past. People get tattoos of the Salesforce logo.
Why?
Like
Because it's like
there's
part of their whole identity.
yeah, yeah. Their whole thing is Salesforce because they've done such a good job of branding it as a community. They have the like whole Hana is family thing that going on. I think we need that a bit with Business Central. I thought Power Platform had that for a while with Power Addicts and all of that, but I think BC can use a bit of that push. And honestly, Brad, I'm not sure like what the answer is, like where that falls, where that onus falls, but we're seeing the revenue come in for Microsoft. So hopefully that helps encourage them to know that this is an area worth investing in. I don't want to go over my NDA, but I'll say one of the solution plays for this year that's going to be announced in a week anyway is for SMB. And this is the first time that we have a solution play that is mainstream Microsoft for SMB. And it is pushing Business Central as the hero product. So hopefully
You can tell us about that now. We won't tell anybody.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. But you do hit a point. I do think you should both get Business Central tattoos.
I was just going to say, I think we're going to have to do that during Community Summit this year.
As soon as they stop changing the logo every other day.
Well, listen, it's Microsoft. If you don't know that they change logos and names every other day, then you haven't been around for a while. But and you were right. I was listening to you talk about Salesforce. I listen to finance news in the morning as the start of my day, and I hear NetSuite commercials. I've never heard or have seen a Business Central commercial. And there has to be a way to collectively come together because, as I say many times on here, and it came back to one of our early episodes with I think, Kris, with Anya, where we're talking about rides and tides, raises all ships. So if we keep promoting the application, we get more resources excited about the application, everybody who works with it benefits. If you're a partner that implements it, you can get more revenue because there's more people using it. If you're a user of the application within your business, that application will evolve, right, to use the latest technologies, to have more features and functionality to make you more efficient. We are at that point where we just have to get and say, okay, let's just all work together. There's 8 billion people in this world. I don't know the number of businesses, but we only need a small piece of the pie and we're all successful, right? We don't have to fight over $10 that's on the floor, because there's millions of dollars, if you're talking about from the revenue point of view. To go back to your friend Michael Lewis, we have to talk about some of his books too. I have a couple over there. Liar's Poker was one. I didn't get the chance to finish that yet because of another reason, but Flash Boys was great too. Was it Flash Boys, the red one, where they talked about the trading and how far you are away from? Yeah, he has some great books. But it's that, again, I keep going back to it. I know it's just kind of a circular conversation, and that's where I wrap my head around. And I do hope that, you know, Microsoft does have to do some of it. It is their core product. They get a lot of revenue from it. It just as partners get revenue from it, but maybe put a lot more advertising on, because I've never seen anywhere
ever
Business Central ever. A Power Platform. I mean, even just saying it works with Power Platform, as you had mentioned, it can excite individuals that may know what part of Power Platform and say, oh, wow, I can interface with this. And I don't know why they don't advertise. I see Windows commercials on TV. I see, you know, other commercials. I just don't know. It's Surface commercials I see a billion of. So it's what do you do to get individuals in? And then also now we need to mentor the resources that come in, because they do need to learn it. It's almost, we need these universities to have classes on Business Central, you know, or classes on business or development, but have the topic be Business Central as the application you use. because I've took courses before on finance and you use Excel as a tool. Now we could have business classes on inventory costing. And now let's use Business Central as the tool. Like how that's the type of things that I think of that we could do. And it's just, we do need a movement to get there.
Exactly.
You guys getting me all excited about this.
I know. I feel like there's like stirrings of all of this stuff around the community that hopefully can start that kind of revolution of that change. But I think it ultimately comes down to like the resourcing from Microsoft. I'm like, yeah, we could have all these great ideas, but in turn, like, who's funding these big activities is part of my, like, that's the rub.
It is. It's either has to be a collective offering.
Yeah.
You know, where everybody contributes a little, or, you know, maybe a major push just from product development or a product application.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned your Futures in Dynamics group. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what its focus is, what its objective is, what its mission is, and how can someone get involved with it if they're interested?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the chance to talk about it. So Futures in Dynamics was born out of the need to empower more young people. We were at Directions EMEA, and we had a session focused on like how can we empower more young people to join the community. Very similar conversation. There was maybe 75 people at the session, all interested in this, all keen. And by the way, not all of them under 30. We had a lot of people that wanted to hire more young people or wanted to empower more young people. And so this was born out of that. It's a mentorship and peer mentorship group, but also advocacy is a big piece of what we're trying to do, because unfortunately, there are still some organizations that believe it's what you've done in the past. But to your point, like Business Central is changing all the time. So there is a lot of value in thinking about what you can do in the future. And so we're doing a lot of surveys with organizations. I think so far we have about 120 partners that have answered our survey. So we're starting to get some good data. We're going to reveal all of it in November at Directions EMEA. And that will be a good opportunity to start seeing what the baseline is, how many organizations are actually mentoring, and then advocate to Microsoft that we need these programs. So kind of consolidating the voice, allowing us to get a single avenue for everyone to communicate, and then also do some mentorship matching programs, which will be good for the general collective. It is right now mainly focused on Business Central, but of course we'll expand into finance, CE, and all the other workloads in the future.
No, that's good. You have to start somewhere. You had mentioned you're going to release this information at Directions EMEA in November. What about you do anything with Community Summit? And I know Directions North America will be in the spring. You plan to release that same information then?
Yes, absolutely. We want to be present at all the conferences, exactly like our sister org, Women in Dynamics. We're going to be expanding more and more into all of them.
Yeah. How can we, as other partners, help support that initiative?
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Very similar to Women in Dynamics, you can sign the pledge. You can be a part of the survey. These are the main two CTAs that we have right now. We want more information. So we can go and advocate to Microsoft, because if we show that there's a good proportion of the community that is in this range, we can go advocate. And while things like Microsoft Learn and all of these things are good tools, we want more community activation campaigns. Like it would be great to have something like Convergence come back, where it is a Microsoft sponsored conference. It is bringing the whole community together. It's allowing for an exchange of ideas. And it is not super exclusive, because if you think of either Directions conference, we're getting like at max 4,000, 5,000 people at both combined. And a lot of it is the same exact people popping into both, but the community is much larger for Business Central. And so I think having more of an opportunity to collaborate, to have conversations together would be hugely impactful. And so we're also partnering with DynamicsCon and with all the user groups. So we want to make sure that this is as prevalent as possible. But for now, partners can support it with the survey. Visit the LinkedIn page. You can find it there. It's just Futures in Dynamics.
Okay, so is it futuresinDynamics.com?
The website is going live soon.
Oh, okay.
I was just looking for it, and I was like, "Am I lost?"
No.
You are not lost right now.
It's an evolution. You're good.
I can spin this and say that we're doing a very decentralized social experiment, but it's actually just we haven't had the website go up yet.
The good little spin would have been good.
Yeah.
And so within this movement, or even just with your experience with mentorship and internship, because I thought of the whole internship process, even myself, is a way, because I do go back to what you said, and I just want to repeat, just someone's experience with an application or what they have done doesn't define what they can do. Your past may shape you in a sense, and how you do certain things, but it doesn't mean your potential is capped. And what you did a couple of years ago, you may have been, the best developer in the planet, right? And then now today, because of whatever reason, something could have happened, you're no longer that same caliber. So just because you may have not been great before doesn't mean you can't be great tomorrow. And just because you were great before doesn't mean you're great today. And I think that's a big mentality we need to have. But we talk about internship. Do you know how many partners is part of your survey? If you could even give some insight, or even just your personal experience, either one of you, how many partners are working with interns to foster Business Central resources within their own organization? And what has their success been like, if you know? If we don't know, then we can just ask that to the planet.
As an ISB, I don't have an experience with it, but I'm assuming, Khaled, you probably do, just with Binary Stream.
ISVs can have interns too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
anybody in the community.
We're not intern people, unfortunately. I love an intern. That's some of my best hires ever have started as interns in previous roles, but Flowcast, we don't do internships. I need to look into that.
On PBC, we need to do an episode where Kris and I come on as interns, and Khaled could be our mentor.
Yeah, okay, let me pitch it.
How do you take these podcasters into working in office?
Yes, or not even that. Just say someone's doing a career change, or we could look like we just came out of college and now we're ready for an internship. But I think it would be a good episode, and maybe your organization.
I agree. It sounds a bit like we're ripping off the movie The Intern.
I was just going to say, I think this has been done.
Oh.
I think Anne Hathaway might have been in it.
Yeah.
Well,
we'll see.
Well, you said you're almost like The Office, so we can almost be like the intern. So you can cross the two of them together.
Exactly.
And we can, and again, it doesn't have to be an application or at some huge tech company, but I think we could do this.
Yeah.
And then Khaled, as far as our, indoctrination into no longer becoming interns, but full-time employees, he can meld us a new sword from the metal that we mine underneath the office.
And Brad can finally visit California.
And then I can show the tattoo of the Business Central logo as it stands that day.
Yeah, that would be like the last scene is like, Sam, you flex and you show off your Business Central logo.
Yes.
And it's like with sort of friendship.
We got a perfect place for it right here. I think it could go really
Oh, see, this is perfect.
Really
and we could use the sword.
Exactly.
And you could watch the sword, the melting of the sword, the metal coming out of the what are they, the kiln that they burn them in?
Yes.
What do they call those big pots?
Yeah.
And you go down the metal thing into the template, or I don't know all these
Oh my God.
terms. I'm not.
Now I'm just thinking of it being a brand, and I'm freaked out.
In there.
It's good. Don't be freaked out.
But we are seeing about 60% of orgs so far that have reported are hiring interns, or ensuring that they hire early career professionals in some capacity, even if not interns. But definitely much more common in services companies, which is interesting. Like services partners are hiring more interns. I can say as an ISV, we hire a ton of interns, and it's a good win-win because interns are learning a lot. Interns are typically less expensive to hire.
So
there's less risk.
So when you're referring to interns, you're talking paid internships. Is there a mix
Canada,
between
we pay
paid
our
interns?
Yeah, we pay.
Okay. No,
Yeah.
I just want to be clear. I know because you hear internships. Sometimes internships are what some will refer to as
Credits.
free labor.
Yeah.
Internships are sometimes. I know there's also paid internships, which there's it depends how you want to look at it, whatever morally or whatever someone's getting for it. But someone's spending their time, they should be compensated for their time, in my opinion. It doesn't matter what it is. Compensation comes in many forms too. I'm not just saying.
And one thing, it's like
in the form of
if
pay.
you have a successful intern that has grown to doing great things, I mean, that should be celebrated, right? Like that should be talked about, maybe interviewed. I could tell you about 15 years ago, I brought someone, an intern. He changed his career. He was working in a warehouse, took classes, and wanted to be in IT. And because he didn't have experience, no one wanted to hire him. So I hired him. He had the potential. He is driven. He wanted to learn, and he wanted to do something better for himself. And so we spent about 2 years. He was paid intern, became my full-time employee, moved on, and worked for the city, and now manages the 2 cities, their IT infrastructure. And he's doing well for himself. And one of the greatest things that what I get out of that, he calls me at least once a year to thank me and said, "Hey, I wouldn't have what I have today if you didn't give me a chance. If you didn't give me a chance at all of just give me an internship." So it's such an amazing feeling. So
it goes a lot of ways with that. Touching someone's life is another piece that's important, because sometimes it's something that's so inconsequential to you. And I think I've spoken about this. I don't remember if we've had it on an episode. I know I speak with it in my life because I promote this. A small action that you do which may be inconsequential in your life and passing can dramatically change somebody else's life. One thing about internships too is if you mentor them properly, what I think, if you have to have the mindset to look future and into the future, there's a lot of loyalty there. If I am brought up and you trust me and you work with me to become successful, I'm going to be loyal to you, right? And loyalty comes in many forms. So these interns, or somebody that's new, and an intern, we've talked about, you're 30 and under, and your collegiate graduates, I'm going to jump into that to people who may want to do a career change, because I think individuals that may fall into that space may want to do something else. They may have capabilities and abilities to be successful, even if they're a little bit older, which is why we're going to have an oldies in dynamics.
Exactly.
Right? Not just the young ones.
What about a middle-aged person? Jeez.
I will
say that the intern,
but the loyalty that you can build with these resources is something that you can take with you to drive the success. And it's something that needs to be, I think, part of the promotion, or even just realized.
That is one thing too, because the intern that I was speaking about, he was much older than me. Just wanted to change a career, tired of working in the warehouse. So that is something to consider too. So it's not just, maybe coming out of college, young or anything like that. Just someone that wanted to do better for themselves. Giving them an opportunity.
So when you do the website, you have to put for middle-aged people too. And when we do our PBC career for the interns, now we have a story.
Yes, I think it goes back to when you're doing mentorship, that diversity and inclusion really comes into place at that time. So I think that's important to consider.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, I think it's not just about considering one's lives and prioritizing that over others. There's people who are overlooked in all kind of different segments of the age bracket, of the background, social background, anything. And so being able to empower them and having a home in the Business Central community is so powerful, because one, we're getting more resources. Brad, to your point, we're getting loyalty because people are going to commit to this platform. And they're going to feel empowered, and they can achieve much more. They can meet their potential, exceed their potential. And you're getting, no matter how you look at it, I always like to take the economic standpoint, because we're in the business of making money. No matter what we say, we're all businesses. And there is a lot of economies of scale when you learn how to train one intern. You can train all the different interns you have. There's a huge ROI, because you're hiring someone at a decent rate, but it's not going to be the same as what someone who has been working for 10 years is asking for. So you get some benefits there, but then you also get someone who's committed. And so the time you invested in training them is going to last you a while. So you have better return on investment there. And that's why I think all partners should have internship programs, should have mentorship programs. And if they don't have them, then this is what the community at large is for.
Well, I think maybe as part of this, we need to determine how to help set up an internship program at partners or ISVs or other organizations, because
That's a good point.
It's like the chicken and egg, right? It has to be like, I want to have an intern, but I don't know how to find an intern. I want to have an intern, but I don't know how to do it. How do I set up an intern? What is involved? And now maybe a mentor can have me as a mentee to, set up an intern program. And then how do I multiply that to other organizations? So I think starting with the awareness, the conversation, and starting small. I mean, we can have long-term objectives, but as you had mentioned, I think, or alluded to in the conversation, you just take one small piece at a time. And eventually, it's when you write a book, one page at a time. Eventually the book, where you want to, the book that you want to write, the chapters. Now you just do it one page at a time, and eventually the book is complete.
Now, I got one more question about this mentorship. When I started my career, I happened to have multiple mentors. How does that work? What are you guys' thoughts on that? How important is it to have multiple mentors, or is it not important?
I like the value of the diversity of having more than one. I think, kind of to Khaled's point on the basketball mentor, like, yeah, you can have a business coach mentor. You can also have a how do I be a better person mentor. There's just such value in the variety of people who speak into your life that I think people kind of just are like, I've got this one mentor and this is mentorship in a box. But I think it's more than just mentor one-to-one, one person forever. It's how do you mentor people around you when they need it is another concept that I'm really into. And then, again, the diversity of different personalities speaking into your life, I think, is a lost kind of act, and something I'd like to see more people kind of get.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. I think it's useful to have multiple people. They speak to your multiple different sides, right? Like Brad might want someone who talks to him about The Witcher, someone who talks about coffee, or just one Sam, and he gets a full package.
Love it.
Brad, you're muted.
Brad's talking to himself. He's just hanging out.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Kris. You can keep that in there too, so everybody can see
I'm going to keep it.
I made a mistake. I apologize. I muted and I forgot to unmute myself.
Happens to all of us. It's like day one.
No, I think I agree. Having multiple individuals. If I had a nickel for every time somebody said, "I'm sorry, I was muted," or "Oh, you're muted," or
we'd all be billionaires.
We'd all be retired at this point over the past few years. But I think having I agree with what everyone said. I think having multiple points of view, it can be helpful because a person mentoring you can be at a certain facet of your life.
Yep.
To me, life is like that cart at the grocery store. You're pushing groceries to the store. You have four wheels. You have your professional life, your personal life, your mental life, and your physical life. And just like that cart, one of those wheels gets stuck, what happens to the rest of the cart? You're going in the grocery store, you're crashing into things and you're falling over. So you need to make sure you're well balanced. So I think that's important as well. But just before we wrap up a little bit, so Witcher season 3.
I mean,
there's been a lot of controversy. I've been reading on this.
We
won't give any spoilers.
Yeah, my only big thing that everyone knows is I'm not ready for the jolt between Henry Cavill and the Hemsworth. I'm not ready. I don't think it's going to be an even playing field. I'm not ready.
This season will probably be my last because you can't make that big of a shift. I am a big fan of this season. I think they're doing a great job.
Yeah, I agree.
Yennefer, even during the season, I even try to talk like
Okay, I love her character this season. She's growing a lot.
I think she's great.
But whoever styled the wigs for her needs fired.
This is what I've been reading.
You'll see those wigs.
What I've saw.
Crazy.
Everyone's saying they can't spend money on the visual effects. They said the show is great. They're doing everything, but they must have cut out the visual effects.
They took some budget for sure.
There was one scene on the horse when Ciri was on a horse. I'm not giving a spoiler for anybody because the seasons still go on and it's timeless. But Ciri riding a horse in The Witcher is not a spoiler. But you could tell
that was a $10 special effect.
It was like she was on a green screen that it wasn't even the same lighting. It was a completely different.
Did they use Teams?
The light was at it. They probably did, but light was at a different angle. It was more flat. She was like dark and like, cinematic in that tone. It was just so off, and I was sitting going, this is a production that they spent a year for, that they couldn't even match this one horse.
And they couldn't just get all the episodes with Henry in them. Like, what were you thinking? If you were going to cut budget, like, let's just bang out the season as fast as possible.
It's funny. It's funny. I will go back to the last two books. I read the books. When I say the 7, I'm reading them from chronological order, not published order, because they wrote the 5 first, and then they did 2 prequels. I started with the prequels.
Yep.
So I have the last 2 books to read, but I have another stack of things to read before then. And Khaled, you haven't watched it yet, you said.
No, I'll watch it sometime soon. I was also working on my GMAT. I'm going back to school for a little bit, so that's been taking over my life. And
for sure.
Well, I hope you pick up a few interns while you do it. But we'll have to have you back on again, and we can talk about our favorite coffees. We'll have to have a let loose episode, Kris, where we just have people come on to talk about things like this, because The Witcher is important.
Yeah.
And
I'm down.
The other thing that came out too was Black Mirror.
Yes. Great season.
Black Mirror is another good one. I watched all of those. Here I am saying I don't have much time, but I did cut some time off for Black Mirror.
This is misleading.
You definitely have some Zelda time in you.
No. It's the short burst. It's the micro burst. Like I try to unwind, and these episodes you're talking an hour.
Yeah.
So I try to watch, and they've been out for a little bit, so I don't binge them. I don't do everything. I still try to get to reading it. Well, Sam, Khaled, thank you very much for speaking with us.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
We appreciate hearing your insights on mentorship. I look forward to speaking with both of you more and seeing you in person at the conferences to learn more about your group that you started, Khaled, the Focus and Dynamics, Future and Dynamics, Sam, and to talk about you with coffee and hopefully see you on set at PBC.
Oh, yeah.
But before then, Sam, if you would, could you tell us how individuals could get in contact with you or see other great things that you're doing?
Yes. So I'm big on social media. You can find me on Twitter and now Threads as well. At
I heard about that. That came out today.
Yes, it came out last night. It was early. So all the social media managers are panicking, which good luck to them. But I had myself a time all over it last night. It was so fun. But yeah, so you can follow me, Ambush Digital or Sam Bush, all one word, on any platform. You can find me. Pretty active on LinkedIn. You get to see some silly videos of me on and off. So, and then if you see me at a trade show, please say hello. I'll be in a green suit or a navy suit every day. So you'll see me.
And put a helium balloon on you next time with the Business Central logo.
Oh, I'll just have my tattoo out.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll put the links for your Twitter and LinkedIn.
Perfect.
I haven't ventured over to Threads yet. Twitter and LinkedIn are about all I can do.
Yeah.
If you get that tattoo, by the way, make it like a tribal tattoo, because then it cultivates or discusses the community.
And then I can add like all of the different ones around.
Yeah. There you go.
Interesting.
This is, I like, the progression.
Yeah.
Just like they went from Navision, Attain, Microsoft Business Solutions. This is good. This is good. Khaled, could you do the same? Would you please share information on where we could learn more about the Futures Dynamics about yourself and see other great things that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Khaled Nassra on all social, Nassra with 2 S's. And you can find my podcast also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you want to go. It's BizApps Springboard. Very similar format where I just talk about the human stories of people's lives. And then also active at conferences. I'm always happy to talk to people. I will say I will never shut down a conversation. You guys can probably tell I'm a talker. Always happy to say hi to people.
Great, thank you. We'll put a link to the podcast and a couple of your social links in the show notes as well.
Awesome.
But thank you both again. We appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. We know your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending it with us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao, ciao.
Cheers.
I appreciate it.
Bye, everybody.
Ciao, ciao. Bye. Thank you, Kris, for your time for another episode of In the Dynamics Corner Chair. And thank you to our guests for participating.
Thank you, Brad, for your time. It is a wonderful episode of Dynamics Corner Chair. I would also like to thank our guests for joining us. Thank you for all of our listeners tuning in as well. You can find Brad at developerlife.com. That is DVLPRLIFE.com. And you can interact with them via Twitter, DVLPRLIFE. You can also find me at matalino.io, MATALINO.io. And my Twitter handle is matalino16. And you can see those links down below in the show notes. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, and take care.